And do not hesitate to put during the presentation any question you may have in the chat. That means to reach the platform of FitNESS, that means usually it's quite simple. Huh? That means if you want to Google it, you just need to enter in Google, you type FitNESS, and don't forget, because the main website is hosted by AgroParisTech, that means you type AgroParisTech. That's something that we have you. And if you need to reach, you type FitNESS AgroParisTech and you need to reach this page. And Google know it really well. You have, when you arrive there, you have two buttons. You have, that means the arrange button. If you click, I have understood, that will bring you to the platform FitNESS 1. That means you can play with it because it's still there. That means we will refresh the content, but it's not the intent to change really this platform, FitNESS 1, but is to extend it. But if you still prefer FitNESS 1, you can play with it. And something really funny is that you can search in any kind of content for any kind of concept you would like, for example, eco-design. And if there is any lecture associated to eco-design, you will be able to find it. And something you will see is that you can read the lecture directly, you can jump to other concepts such as sustainability, environment, LCA, bottles. You can go to different slides if you want. You can play with it. These features are still there. Yes, it's small. It's really small. But the point of today is to give you access to the platform FitNESS 2. That's the second button. Then if you click on the platform FitNESS 2, you have a different menu. Please, the buttons are large because we plan, the intent of the platform FitNESS is that you play with your smartphone, with your tablet, that you can learn with anything you want. And if, again, we propose you, I want to learn with FitNESS 2 or with FitNESS 1, and you go below the content we are proposing during the training session, it's available on the left training session on May 24. You just need to click here, then you have access to the content that we propose for the session of these 2 days, or 3 days even, and you have something directly access to the content here. If you want to have access to the entire content of the platform FitNESS, you just need to click FitNESS 2. You have a similar menu, and here you have a much bigger content. You can select what you want. If you want to learn on, that means shelf life, on environmental pollution, then you click on the topic. Then you will have access to, you will reach at the end the lecture. And when you have a lecture, you have a summary of the lecture. Then you can read the lecture, you can take a quiz, that means for the content. That's just rapidly to give a broad overview of the platform FitNESS, what you can learn by yourself. That means something I want to share with you is the philosophy now that we have. That means behind the platform FitNESS. You can go back to the main page. And if you go to the bottom, we propose some kind of blah, blah, because it's something which is needed. And you have a link, that means for the FitNESS 2 May 24 presentation. And if you click on it, then you have a small webinar associated to the platform to explain what it is. First of all, the presentation, that means everything that we have on FitNESS. Initially, in FitNESS 1, the only source of content we could propose is something that was from PowerPoint. We added, you will see video, we added a keyword, we added a search engine, but we wanted to have something much more interactive. FitNESS 2 is designed in a more flexible manner. That means we can either convert, that means file that exists in other format, or directly design from scratch a presentation using Markdown. And everything that we are doing with the platform, which is not bad, that means you can have, such as a little in PowerPoint, you can have an overview. of the content. That means what you will see, you can click on the slide. You have, sorry, that means it's not working exactly as expected. You have help for all the, that means if you press question mark, you will have access to all the keywords we have, and you can navigate through the platform. The intent of the platform, simple, is that we think that if we want to resolve the problem of food packaging, please don't forget that food packaging, in particular plastic packaging, is the first source of waste. We have really new regulation that will enforce, that means we need to reduce the amount of waste produced domestically, at least by half rapidly in the next coming 10 years. At least it's what is put in the new regulation PPWR. The only way to reach that is to come back to school and to think more globally, something we did not do before. That means we feel responsible for the situation we are. That means people teaching food, we say, that means there's a bad that we have to accept. We need to accept the packaging around the food. People in the material will say that even the materials need to be, let's say in the past, they need to be intelligent, they need to be active, to put all the time more packaging, what is not necessarily needed. And the intent of the content of the platform FitNESS is to propose you a broader view of the technical issues. That means about what we think could be solution, about the legal issues, about, that means the new trends, emerging risk, either environmental or related to Earth. You have access to all of this content. That means that's something that is prepared by 20 partners across Europe. We try to propose you something now in the platform. The platform will learn from you. You will not only read the content, but we will ask you questions. From the question, we will learn what you don't know. And this is why in platform FitNESS, we are developing an NI layer that is capable of suggesting content. That means I told you that means the platform FitNESS 1 still exists. That means you can play with it. But with FitNESS 2, we have something collaborative. That means you can have the content duplicated on different mirror websites in order to encourage other universities across the globe to reuse the content, to design their own lecture. Their own lectures, such as you can use Wikipedia to create content for your students, to create content for your people in your companies, to have something freely accessible. That's the interest of the platform FitNESS. And something we would like to encourage is that means also we don't track you. If you are working in a private company and you want to learn something from Wikipedia, no one is blocking you. No one is tracking you. No one will check what you are looking at, what you are looking for. That means there is no shame not to know something about one aspect of packaging. And frankly, we are not tracking you. There is no way for us to track you. We don't need password, we don't need login. That's really the way we work. We use a non-centralized architecture. That means even if you consider that it's safer to have the platform in your company, you can download it. On the main web page, you can download entirely the content of FitNESS to be sure that you can read it privately. That's something that we authorized. That means, well, if you want to play, we provide the QR code, but I told you even how to access to that, to the platform FitNESS. What we propose on the platform, that means between FitNESS 1 and FitNESS 2 is still maintained. That means all the content are split in 2 levels, something that we call common. It's not necessarily something basic. That means it's really the background you need to know if you want to learn something about the packaging. There's a common agreement, there is a minimum lecture that are really mandatory about food packaging. And one clear example, you need to know a little about the materials that are used for packaging. That's one aspect. But you need to know a little about the food. That's also important because it's food packaging. It's not the packaging of something else. Then you have a second level, which is more advanced. In this case, is to propose you a content that is in agreement with the large results that we have from our laboratories. And something we introduce in FitNESS is the possibility to get certificates. That means to validate that you attended either the content of FitNESS or you are capable to resolve some problems, and the problems, the way we evaluate your knowledge is based on questionnaire to validate that you reach some level in some aspect of the packaging. That's a new feature that has been introduced. And what we want to evaluate is not that you know packaging, that you know food. That's not really the problem at stake, is that you can do something responsible. That means that you can demonstrate that you have knowledge in different domains. That's something that is introduced in FitNESS based on the pillar to propose you validated content, to have everything which is open source. Open source doesn't mean that is better. At least we can improve it. If you find any incorrectness or obsolescence, we agree that needs to modify it. That doesn't mean. That means also that you can use the content, use and reuse the content. You have to be careful because we express clearly the kind of license associated to the content, but normally most of the content is proposed with very permissive licenses. Everything is proposed with Creative Commons, at least for attribution. But in many times we authorize, and it depends on the authors, the modification even of the content. You have a search engine. Something we have, that means it's not PowerPoint because we don't want to have it. You can download the entire platform. It's open source, clonable. You can blend the learning. That's really the interest. For those from the industry that are interested in compliance and testing, because they work with linear economy, they want to evaluate whether the plastics from virgin materials are compliant with the regulation 10/2011. They can do simulation. The same for people using recycled plastic. They need to demonstrate that if there was a carcinogenic substance inside the recycled pellet, that means that this substance cannot migrate below the toxicological threshold accepted for genotoxic substances. They can do that with computational tools. They are proposed online. That means they are on top. I developed a tool, SFPP3. You can play with it. That means it's for free. Everything is available. You can learn almost today anything about food packaging. We don't have really limits. You will spend several months, it's beyond 3 months you need to learn everything that we put online. That means all the content we can propose can be associated now with multimedia. That means we don't have too much sound, except when we record the lectures. We try to emphasize a lot, that means the new obligation, recycling, reuse, the evaluation of environmental impact, safety, health. We emphasize that a lot. That means we will put also the new evolution of the regulations in Europe and in some member states. Something we discussed this morning is a little European-centric. We try to put in more content with much more for a global audience. For example, to introduce more the regulation that exists in the United States, because we have users that come from all the planet. Something yet, because we are not good specialists, we did not integrate the Chinese regulation for now. That means, and what we provide, please keep in mind that there are sensible answers. That's not necessarily a solution. The issues at stake today are quite complex. And we agree to share results of research. You have on the left packaging without a buyer. You have on the right a packaging with a functional buyer. That means you will find even recommendation how to use materials with functional buyer, how to develop them. That's something you can learn really on the platform. Either from platform FitNESS 1 or FitNESS 2, if you feel that it's not enough to have static content, that means just to have some text, some slides, you have access to some videos. At least in FitNESS 1, 60% of all the lectures have been recorded at different times, different places, but you will have also the teacher that is repeating also the lecture. Even if you are not there, this is the first lecture that gives you a panorama, that means about anything on food packaging. In FitNESS 1, if you click on top, you will have access to this menu with a water cloud, give you how much time you need to spend to attend to the presentation, sometimes even with different version of recording. That means that's this available. Something we introduce, that means in FitNESS 2, I insist, is mirroring, and it's a lot of QA. Something you will see rapidly is that we provide a lot of QA. And you have many things that you can play with. I don't enter into the technical part. We describe much more now the platform, how to reuse it, because we encourage technical and professional associations to reuse the content, to propose the content specific for the industry. That's something perhaps we could improve, or we should improve. For now, since today the presentation is from the University of Paris-Saclay, Campus Agro. We are in the building of AgroParisTech. That means we face mainly students. But the platform has been developed for people also from the industry. Whatever your background, if you are a chemist, if you are food scientist, that means if you are engineers in mechanics, in chemistry, you may find the content relevant. If you deal at one moment with anything related to materials, food, retailing, that means earth, recycling, collection, sorting, then you will find something. We are sure of that, and we encourage the professional, that means association, to contribute. Currently, you have as partners, you have already technical centers. That means only for particular in France, even you have national reference laboratories that are involved. That means for that. Here about that group, that means the group is mainly located in really Paris-Saclay, but everything can be cloned. That's my group, that means for modeling and computational engineering, and perhaps to encourage you to play, really, because we like to play a lot. If I go back to home, if you go to access FitNESS 2, and in particular, if you want to play with the content we put online for these days, I just give you a short manual how you can play. You have to come back, you click FitNESS 2, and you go a little in the middle, and you go training session May 28, 29. You have the lecture we propose. In particular, for the content we propose today, I did one this morning of bio-based, of the safety of bio-based materials. And if you click on here, then you have the abstract which is proposed. You can read the lecture, and something we encourage any of you, if you want to share information and to help us to train the AI, that is, because we want to measure if the content we created improve your knowledge and your capacity to resolve some problems. Now you have, when you start a lecture, you have possibly to identify, we propose you to identify yourself, but please, we don't want your name. We just need to be sure that we can, once we read the results, we want to separate, that means the user, we want to be sure that we recognize you before and after the lecture. Any lecture now include 4 big time. First, you give your name. For example, and that could be just an ID. I put today, this morning, funny rabbit. with non-email. Then you go to the next section. And in the next section, you start the lecture not with the content. You start the lecture with a questionnaire. We ask you to enter this question. What are the bio-based materials? You can select the things, whatever you want. Then you go to the next question. That means you say, you enter what you want. And you go until the end to the next question. And please enjoy the question. We took time a little to think about the question. And when you reach the end, we propose you to share with us, that means the result you have. You see, I have 0 correct answers, about 13. We don't care because what we want to measure is the progress you will make. That means after the lecture, we will ask you the same questionnaire again. And we expect that you will improve the score. Then you go to your next section. You say, do you want to proceed? Okay, because we lose the result. Then now start the content. In this case, if you want to move the slide, it's really the blue button, the one that is clicking. If not, every 30 seconds, that means the next slide will appear. That means they appear, you can read the content. And at the end, again, we ask you to enter the questionnaire. These kind of things, we will generalize it in the future. That means for now is to train the AI. And in the future, we will do something a little different. That means after 10 or 20 slides, we will ask you questions. And we will test if you have understood what has been presented. And if you understand really well, perhaps we will skip some of the content to jump to another section, to another part. To propose you the content either that is necessary for you to understand or the content that you are more interested in. Perhaps you don't have uniform interest for all aspects of packaging. When we have, in my lectures this morning, there was a 52 slides. Perhaps you are not interested in everything. If you have understood that your level is enough, perhaps we can accelerate the things. That's really the way we designed the platform. Thank you for your attention. If you have questions, put it in the chat. Do we have any kind of questions for now? But don't be shy. That means for the workshop of today. Don't be shy, please. That remains just between us. That's what we are doing. But you can speak also from your place, huh? Sure. Okay. Did you put it in? Yes, I will recur. Because we have a game for you, because for sure, since we guessed that you could be shy, huh? When we discuss how to organize your workshop, and one of the suggestions rapidly was to ask you to walk. And you put it in the chat, that means I will recover it. That means in the chat you have, okay, sorry. In the chat you have a form. We do not have a time to put it in the format of FitNESS. You have a Microsoft Office form. That means that we would like well, okay. It's why I hate Microsoft. That means, you see, I tried. That means as soon as you play with Microsoft, you have rapidly. With FitNESS, you don't have anything like that. Huh? That means no one will ask you any kind of question. That means if I say use, okay. I put it online. Okay, you have. Please, it's written. It is in the chat. Please spend time. How much time do you need?
5 minutes.
Try to fit it in 5 minutes. And it's anonymous. It's just to know you better. And for those that means around in the room, you can do it also, please. And for those without a computer, you can use your smartphone. That will work also.
Perhaps I can share my screen because I have a QR code if it can help some of you. I will just...
You can put in the you can put it in the chat, the QR code also.
Les qui sont pas connectés sur Teams.
Comme ça.
Ils sont que ça s'affiche pas. C'est pas grave.
Ah, tu partages l'écran?
Oui, j'ai partagé l'écran.
Ah, tu as partagé le mot.
Par le QR code. C'est juste que c'est toi qui aurais rechangé.
Ah oui, je vois un truc, mais c'est sur Teams.
Oui, voilà, pas sur le... Pas grave.
Ah.
Soutien. Tout en bas à droite.
Oui, t'as raison.
Et choisis Teams.
Teams
là. C'est bon.
Oui, c'est bon. So for those of you in the room, if you need it, you can just use the QR code and you can also access directly with your phone. Because now, yeah, we have 10 answers, but I know that we are about 40 participants, so we are still missing a lot of answers. So it's only 4 questions, so it's really short. So I think now we have half of the participants who answered, so we still need the feedback of some of you. So perhaps still 5 more minutes, and then I think we can go perhaps through the the questions and for the participants in online. So if you want to intervene or to comment, please just raise your hand and you can intervene this way. Only 23 answers.
23% are listening, the others are doing something else.
Yeah. Perhaps I can copy the link again for the new comment in the meeting. So perhaps we can close the poll. We have 26 answers. You can still answer if you want. You are still able to do it. So I don't know how you would like to do, just perhaps to comment each questions or.
Oh, we can review, yes.
Yeah.
At least we can review the answers that you have. I mean, the first question that we ask you, it's a general knowledge about the regulation. That means the regulation that's associated to food packaging materials. You have the first PPWR, it's packaging waste regulation. It's a new regulation of the European Parliament, which has been voted on April 24, just a couple of weeks ago. That means the Commission Regulation 2022-1616, the second, is associated to the use of recycled materials in plastics. The other regulation, the third, 2023-2006, it's a general regulation, it's a general framework regulation from the European Commission on good manufacturing practices. That means all the regulation of recycled materials are attached to this one. And also attached also for anything, because it's to encourage materials that are not specifically regulated. That means we encourage, that means the European Commission encourage the industry to use, that means to develop GMP, good manufacturing practices. The regulation of 1935-2004 is the general regulation that manage all food contact materials. That say you should not endanger human health, you should not modify the property of the food. And after that, we put regulation, that means of the 21st chapter of the US federal rule, is a code of federal regulation in the United States, that manages something very similar. And FCN means food contact notifications. And the adject law is anti-waste law. It's a French law That means if we were following this law, that means all the plastics in France should be recycled by January 1st next year. That's something difficult to manage. That means for all of this, that means your rate, you acknowledge just above the average, 1.8. And it's quite equilibrated that between those that have an intermediate knowledge of it, those that are quite good knowledge, and a very few that say that have a full knowledge of all of that. If you have, that means a question, that means put in the chat, that means a regulation that you didn't know, try to explain why you don't know them. We agree, for example, it's quite simple. If you are not really working on food packaging, you don't know these laws, it's normal. But if you put anything on the market, you should know all of them. Then the question is, what is really missing? That means you could say, that means, when, please, it's free. We are here at the university. You could say, okay, we don't understand well what the European Commission is putting online. The technical association or professional association are not helping us. It's really complex. It's evolving too fast. We understand that. Or something else. Please try to put some comments. That's the way we can interpret the first question. And the others in the assembly, if you want to comment, it's something we could guess when we set this question. But if you have anything to say, to complete the answers. Next. That means, and now we have, that means this question is not about what do you know about something, is what we are doing. And something we could guess, that means most of you, not exactly the majority, but almost half, are dealing with plastics. That's not really a surprise. That means that 24% are dealing with bio-based. We don't know if they are plastics or not, because when we say, is what we say this morning, and that means we have bioplastics also. That means if you want to precise in the chat, if for some of you, you are working on cellulosic materials, that means paper and board, for example, and not necessarily plastic, we are happy to hear that. And something we are a little surprised is to have almost 1/3 of the answers of people, more than 1/4 at least, of people working with reusable packaging, because it's not the common practice. Either is because you attended today because you deviate from the conventional practice, then you are curious what we can propose on the platform. Why not? But it's not the situation on the market, but a lot of people involved in reuse.
Okay, if you can give more details in the chat, so in which situation you use reusable packaging, so don't hesitate, please, to share this if you're willing to do so.
And also ask yourself, do you have a specific regulation for reusable packaging? That could be also. And the third question when we designed it was really with an intent is to check your readiness or willingness, but initially it's readiness, if you read it, to change. Among the change that is commonly reported is to substitute plastics by other materials. If we expect a big change of plastics, why not to use materials that are not subjected to so restrictive rules or laws? That's the case for non-plastic materials. Again, quite surprising, and there is quite a lot of people mostly ready to do a big change. And the part not ready at all. Well, that means between many of you are thinking substituting plastics. At least it's what we read. Something that is reported, if you use the plastics, that means by law, it will be mandatory to use recycled or to increase the amount of recycled content to enter into the circular economy. And most of you are ready for that. And also quite surprising, you have also people, but that's in connection with people working on packaging reuse. I think for many of you working on packaging reuse, you say that you are most ready to develop zero waste solutions, because that's... I don't know if you want to comment anything that we read from this poll, please put in the chat. And now that means a question about what you are doing. That means, and in particular, we wanted to have an idea of what you can, and what you are checking to get an objective estimate first of the compliance. Something that we are really surprised at, that means that only 27% of you, I think that they're really checking compliance. If you put anything on the market, that should be all of you, or there is something wrong. I encourage you, please. Oh. It's really clearly stated in the law in the 1935, and you work for the National Reference Laboratory, that for any materials, that means there are some obligations. If they are reused or not, or recycled or not, there are some obligations. At one moment, that's something that need to be verified. That means, I don't know how to interpret, because that could be you don't check compliance because you rely on, that means on the claim of your supplier. You buy something and your supplier claim that everything is compliant. But in this case, ask yourself if you know something about your product. Right? Because that means the claim or the certificate is giving you is really well adapted for your needs. And we have, that means a comment in the chat. That means an industry working on meat industry, charcuterie, we don't have the right to put a recycled content in direct contact with the product. That means we don't have the right. That means if it is, it's not a problem of right. If it is compliant, you can do it. If it's not compliant, you cannot do it. Currently, by law, we don't say where you can use recycled content. Even if we agree, it's easier to put recycled plastics in contact with water than to put recycled material, that means cellulosic or plastics, in contact with fatty food. That means it's not a problem of law at all. It's a problem of technical feasibility. Are we compliant if the recycled content is not super clean, that still contains substances that may contain genotoxic chemicals? And are we sure that we are below the threshold for genotoxic compounds? That means that for which we induce an exposure below 0.0025 microgram per kilogram of body weight and per day. That's what the ESA was saying, and what you will find really in many places in the plastic regulation. It's a concept of TTC. Something we like that for the question number 4, then we have, that means a second question that we ask, do you check migration? Our migration need is quite mandatory, but it's mandatory for everything in plastics. Linear or circular economy, we don't care. Because you need to check all the time the overall migration. Many times you have substances subjected to restrictions, you need to check migration. That means either you do it or your supplier. And normally, if you play with plastic, you need to check migration. If you deal with cellulosic materials, it's something that was in the lecture this morning. Also, in many cases, you have a positive list, at least If your customers or your retailers are in France, Germany, Netherlands, little Italy, Spain, you have a regulation that you have to comply with. That means you have recommendation of the Council of Europe. That means you need to check also migration. And also in more general for many bio-based. The presence of endocrine disruptors is not mandatory by law. You have some substances such as BPA that are forbidden now. That means you need to check the absence. Sometimes it's difficult, or to check that it's not done systematically. And tomorrow we will present, the lecture is not online, but there will be a content on recycled plastics and what could be done tomorrow for if we don't target just one single endpoint, but several endpoints. And the last question, that means we like it because we know that it's super difficult how to check the amount of recycled content in your material or in your raw material. That depending if you have a converter, you buy something, but do you know what are you buying? Or you buy some films or bottles that are processed, what do you know about it? And in the chat, we have how the amount of recycled content could be determined just by mass balance certification. That means that could be a certificate. That means you can manage it with pieces of paper that were also to. That means we accept it in Europe. But do you have the possibility to verify the claim? That's the difficult part. Something we debated a little in this morning. That means, for example, for cellulosic materials, it's also difficult to recognize if the paper and board are recycled or not. According to the guidance of the European Council, they encourage to do a UV image. You see spot of things that are fluorescent in your paper and board. Really specifically located, that's not hemicellulose. That means that it's quite likely that you see cellulosic materials is recycled. For plastics, it's more complicated. You will see in the presentation that will be online. I'm not sure that the presentation of tomorrow on the web. Your presentation, is it online already? Or then, yes, it is online. That means if you go to the presentation of tomorrow, you will have, that means a new methodology developed by Eleni and ourselves, how to determine in a blind manner, using information theory, something that we did during a PhD work here in the lab. We have a method, at least it is available in research. And that will be proposed soon to the industry to determine the recycled content. And we have Louise that put, she said yes. I don't know exactly to which question.
To the first on the charcuterie.
Wait, okay. Yes, it's more for technical reason that they don't put recycling content. It's not a problem of right, but it's because it does not work. If you want to share more, do not hesitate. We can perhaps leave you later time.